Hello, 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 hello. Good morning. Good morning. My name's Mo. I run Compostable LA, which is in LA. And we're going to take a slight shift in the type of education today and talk about resilient operations. So knowing how to build your compost piles is really important, obviously making tea. Pema's going to talk later about bioplastics, but I want to talk about how to set you up for longevity. This year for Compostable, every month I was like, are we gonna make it? I don't know if we're gonna make it. It was like a big heart attack year for me. And so these are the things that helped me get through this year. Who knows what next year is gonna hold for me, but when come January, it's gonna be the most crazy celebration for me and my team because we just made it through the toughest year yet. So I wanted to impart that wisdom onto you guys. So if you hit really tough years, you've set yourself up to withstand the storm, basically. And we're going to use the best teacher there is, which is nature. Now, also, little caveat. This is my first time giving this presentation, so I might be a little trippy and stuff like that, but just work with me. So nature is our best teacher, right? So what does she teach us about resiliency? We're going to take lessons from her ability to be redundant, her ability to diversify, and her ability to foster interconnected systems. And then at the end, we'll have a dialogue amongst all of ourselves on how this could be more applicable to you guys. If you have any questions about my personal experience running Compostable. Did anybody join Soil Palooza? Yeah, okay. I did a little conversation on that about micro hauling. So that's what we do. We're micro haulers, but we do more things than that. We do consulting, we do education, but that's how we got our start as Compostable. So the first thing, strength and redundancies. So this sounds like something, when I was first learning about redundant systems having strength, I always thought redundancy was a waste. Kind of. I was like, well, if I already have one thing, why am I going to invest anything else in the same exact thing? And that's because when that one thing fails, you have that backup system. And I have learned the importance of investing in something that might seem like I have limited resources, I can't stretch them that far. I already have something that covers that. So let me just focus on something else. But as you grow larger, you're going to find that those redundant systems really set a stable foundation for you to be on. So here's a couple of ways that I have fostered redundant systems in my own operation. Multiple outlets for key operations. So at one point, community composters are kind of always in flux in what they're capable of managing. And we want to be okay with that. We want to be accepting of the ebbs and flows of businesses. So if one of my processing partners says to me, I am at capacity for material, what does that mean? Do I stop accepting material from my members because this one operation is at capacity? Do they stretch themselves thin because they feel pressured to service me? No, we have multiple different partners that serve that function. So I can be like, cool, you can only handle 1,000 pounds a week. That's fine. I'm going to pivot over to this person. They can handle 200. This person can handle 2,000. Oh, you're shutting down because your employee was sick. No big deal. And what each of these you're gonna find is it creates consistency, and that's going to be really important for building a trusting relationship with your community. You want your community to rely on you. You are always doing what you promised them that you would be doing. Another thing is having a staff buddy system. You don't want to create burnout. So how can staff rely on each other so they can take vacations? They are allowed to be sick and not drag themselves to work because they feel like, I don't want to we're all here because we're extremely passionate. We don't volunteer or work for low money or put our noses in smelly food waste because we're not like insanely passionate about the work we're doing. So we can also push ourselves too far if we don't have systems in place that say, take a rest. So my staff are all have a buddy and they are co-trained on each other's work. So one can fill in when somebody's out. We also have backup of critical tools. Again, this is where it could feel like a waste of money to buy 2 hoses when you already need 1. But if your hose pops, are you going to stop operations and go buy another hose? And like that, it just creates levels of stressors. So always have backups of critical tools so your workflow doesn't get interrupted. And again, this is all going back to staff burnout. How stressful is it for a staff to be in their flow and then a critical tool breaks and like, are they going to Home Depot? Are you going to Home Depot? Do they get their hours cut if you're paying them? So creating systems in place that doesn't halt workflow. And then messaging on repeat. We are doing a lot of advocacy in the community composting movement. And everybody learns in different ways. Your staff, your community, you. So how can you get the messaging out to your community in different formats, in different platforms, but it's the same consistent messaging? So, okay, we're going to do newsletters that capture maybe an older population. We're going to do social media that captures a younger population. We're going to do speaking events that captures maybe the corporate population. And it's the same message on all these different platforms. So it gets repeated. And sometimes you're saying the same thing to the same people. Maybe the same people are on your newsletter and your social media, but then it's getting ingrained in their head. And so that's a little bit of a different take than just purely operational, but creating that community that they know they can rely on you for messaging. They know that that you're going to be where you are when you say you are, creates you as a reliable part of it. And so how does this look in compostable? So every one of these photos is a different processing partner for compostable. Compostable doesn't process our own compost. We did for a while, but we have found and I'm going to talk later about strategic partnerships, prefer to have strategic partnerships instead of vertical integration. So we could have just partnered with LA Compost to process our compost, but we also have Tawa Compost, Los Angeles Community Garden Council, Avenue 33 Farm, Future Foods Urban Farm, and Real Waste. And they all compost different ways. They all have different capacities. And what I love is they're all in different locations. So all of Compostable's material is processed right within the city of LA. And this decentralization of partnerships has allowed us to live more in alignment with our values as well, because we're trying to keep the material as close to the source of generation as possible. So there's all these co-occurring benefits happening where we can say, not only are our operations stable, but our material is decentralized. And we're also supporting all of these growing avenues, not just putting all of our resources into one of them. Each of them get soil and we pay them to take our material. And so it's uplifting a wealth of people. Okay, strength and diversity. This really got us through this year. Okay, economy of scope is a term I learned about a year ago that really changed the way, or maybe two, I don't know, maybe it changed the way I looked at my company. We always think of economy as scale and how that can provide cheaper resources, better purchasing models, and there is benefits to economy of scale. And maybe we achieve some level of economy of scale in our cooperation with one another. Maybe all of you form a little coalition that bulk buys materials together, and you can mimic economy of scale that way. But that takes a lot of external cooperation. And so how can you also foster economy of scope? And you kind of think of this when you're thinking of investment portfolios, right? You want a diverse investment portfolio, so if stocks fall, your bonds are safe. The same is true for the services you provide. When Compostables started, we were once a week, just weekly residential pickup. That's it. No biweekly, no offices, nothing. Weekly residential, very hyper-focused. And then we became biweekly. And then we started offering wedding composting. And then, oh, your commercial wants to compost? I guess we can do that too. Let me figure that out. And then oh, your office wants to compost? Oh, you have questions for me? Will you pay me to answer them? And thank you. I will do that. And all of a sudden, we developed all these service offerings. What happened this year? Okay, the green bins rolled out service in LA. And effectively, people were like, well, bye. Yeah, and I was like, shit. I lost 33% of my customer base. Okay, crap, we're freaking out. No worries, we got productions, man. We're set. What else happened this year? Everybody went on strike. So productions totally collapsed too. No worries, man. We are building out offices and we're going to try and push the worm castings that we're selling. And we're going to try and push Mo getting in front of people more. When I used to just kind of like, oh yeah, I'll talk if someone, now I'm like, hey, you guys want me to talk? I'll talk. You want me to talk? I'll come out and talk. So if I had just relied on residential collection and the green bins rolled out, or if I had just relied on production, I would have shuttered immediately. There would have been no sustaining the business. So having different revenue streams that are in alignment with your mission, so not going so wild that you get mission drift, that are in alignment with your mission. So what's Compostable's mission? We want to be an alternative to major waste hauling for anybody who seeks to process their organics locally. That's the mission. So if I can choose things that help foster that mission, then I'm groovy, baby. I'm like in alignment with that. So, and I'll talk about revenue streams in a second. Staff skill sets. Every one of my staff, they're wild. We have bucket washers with a master's degree. One of my drivers used to write for the LAist. One of my administrative staff like ran her whole own permaculture center. Like I'm like, and I don't pay that well. I'm just gonna be real. Like I don't pay that well. I'm like, what are you doing here? But what I do to help foster this sense of fulfillment, not just in being involved in a compost operation, is how can I utilize that skill set? So you feel like this unique offering that you have is growing out the company and you're really like embedded in the company. So the LAist guy writes our blog posts. The permaculture woman does all of our operations, which it's like a transferable skill set, right? There's a lot of moving parts there. And so it makes sense. Our actress runs our production because she knows how that works. And so they can have these like co-occurring interests that occur at the same time within this business. And then service and processing methodologies. I kind of already talked about services in the economy of scope. I don't do different processing methods, but this is something I wanted to throw in for you guys. Is it beneficial to have a windrow system and a worm system? And can you feed the worms some of your windrows and then you can sell the vermicompost at a higher profit margin? And then you can also sell, but then you have the windrows at a lower price that you can sell to maybe people who can't afford the worm castings. And so like, how can these different processing systems provide a diverse set of avenues to reach different audience members? Maybe, landscapers don't fully care about worm castings. They're just going to buy the windrows, but these like, kind of more bougie residential people really have heard the wonders of worm castings because there are wonders, and they're like, I want that premium product, and then you can sell. So thinking about how you can incorporate tea, that's another prime example. Those are great for landscapers. They want to spread that stuff all over the grass. So how can you incorporate these different processing methodologies to create different products? How am I doing on time? Good. Okay. So our offerings, this is a little bit small. So here's the news articles that show that LA residents are now required to compost in the green bin. And I was like, what? Okay. And then Hollywood hit with strikes. So I was like, this is a joke, right? It's not great. So here are all the services we offer. We offer memberships to offices and residential. We offer special collections for events and production. We offer on-site composting systems. Do we want to come to your house and install and maintain a composting system for you? We offer consulting, both on a professional development and compost development. We offer education. I'm doing speaking events or workshops. And then we also offer soil care. Can we bring our product to your house and treat your lawn or your gardens for you? So, really focusing on different systems. Okay, and then strength and interconnectedness. this is going to go back to strategic partnerships for a bit. Okay. I have found that not working in a silo has saved me time and time again. And this is why I said I didn't want to vertically integrate. I rather focus on strategic partners. I think many companies, and there's nothing wrong with it, it just didn't work for me. Pick up compost, process the compost, sell the compost, all within their one business model. What does that mean? Well, that means you need to run a pickup operation, which requires vans and route mapping systems and CRMs. You also have to run a compost processing system, which requires tools and land and a whole different set of staff skill set for that. Then you also have to run a shop that requires packaging, delivery. And so these are three very different business models. When I started, that overwhelmed the hell out of me. I didn't even know how to compost when I started. I was just like, I used to compost in my backyard, what I now know is a passive composting system. And then I moved here and I was like, I can't compost and I don't have a yard. That was a joke. And so I was like, I can't learn how to compost and learn how to pick up material. LA Compost already does awesome freaking processing. Why don't I just partner with them? They do what they're good at. I'll focus on this one version of my business model, get really good at that. And that's why I said I had dipped my toe in processing eventually. And I was just like, I mean, I don't know. It didn't bring a lot of value to me. We do a little bit. We have a whole worm wedge and we do make vermicastings, but that's just because I think it's fun. You know, I was like, I want a huge worm pile. So I have really relied on strategic partnerships instead of silo work. And that there's this, who has read Braiding Sweetgrass? Oh my God, if you haven't, do yourself a favor. It's just like such a beautiful book. She talks about how all flourishing is mutual. And that principle I have really built into my business. So interconnected systems, team building. Remember, I cannot pay very well right now. And these highly intellectual, very skilled people have been with me 2-3 years. The company's only 4 years old. Why? Because I have focused so much on building this support system in the team where I never have employees call out, ever, never. And I'm like, this is unheard of, like that no one calls out sick the morning of, like what? It's because they value each other so deeply that they rather call out sick the night before they might be sick the day of than put their other teammate under that stress. And that wasn't even something I was trying to cultivate. It's just something I learned. I was like, oh my God, no one ever calls out. And I worked in nonprofits before, and I would deal with morning callouts all the time, and it was so stressful. So even that one piece of stress has set myself up for longevity, and has set the team up for longevity because we are not carrying this internal stress of holding other people's space, really. Everybody's holding their own space, cares about you, is going to try to accommodate in the best way possible. And so there's not this burnout happening. So we do monthly or bi-monthly outings together. We go to bars. We just banter all the time on Slack. If someone did something really hard at work, we celebrate it. So my employee who's new to this just called another client who was really pissed at us. And I was like, she was just not wanting to do it. And I'm like, you got to get on the phone with him. Why? Because you got to remind him you're a human. Email is like, sometimes just get on the phone with your clients if they forget that because he was, had all these vindictive beliefs when we were raising his price. And I was like, Steph, get on the phone with him and remind him that we're not trying to screw this guy. We're just imperfect small business people who are realizing we underpriced him by a lot, and she's like this cute little French girl. So she's like, and I'm like, what is he going to be mad at you when you get on the phone? He realizes, he's just going to be like, and he did. He completely melted. He realized it's easier to have venom via email. So then on Slack, I'm like, everybody, Steph just called a really angry client for the first time. Like, let's congratulate her. And she's, and like the whole team is like, yeah, you friggin' did it, So we do a lot of team building. I do not skimp on that. Strategic partnerships. Michael Martinez from LA Compost once, he once gave me this advice, and he was like, Mo, we are the Hyphal network. We're growing underground quietly, and pretty soon they're gonna look up and we're freaking everywhere. And I was like, hell yeah, yeah, baby. And so like, how are you creating Hyphal networks within your own communities instead of building silos? How can, maybe like I said, that coalition where you group by materials so they're at a discount, maybe something like that is mutually flourishing. Everybody benefits from it. Does it take a smidge extra work? Yeah, but there's camaraderie in there, and there's financial benefits. And then remembering that your success is integral to your partner's success, your community success, and your team success. So how do you create inner peace when you're going through shit that does not spill over onto other people? I think that's really, really important, because like, was I stressed all year? Yeah. Was I going to my team and being like, we're screwed, and you're out of here, like, oh my God. And it's like, no, that's like not what that is not setting them up for success, because then they have to hold me up, so how do I gently let them know, like, we are struggling, let's brainstorm together how we can make it through this really difficult time, and invite in the conversations. So no one, we're always doing this instead of this. We're not dampening, we're elevating. And I didn't stress this with diversity, longevity. So what you're creating when you're creating diverse systems, you're creating an institution in your community, something that's going to be there for a long time to come. Sorry, I'm backtracking a little bit, but think of, so I'm a big community person. Like, I like nestle into neighborhoods, and I just like scunch down. And when I see old institutions close, right, there's some level of sadness, like, oh man, they're closing. Oh, some hip thing is gonna pop up, and I didn't want the freaking hip thing, But I think the best communities I've lived in have had the institutions, the old reliables, and the new hip thing. They have all three, right? They have the thing that's been there forever, and is it like that good? I don't know, but you love it. It makes you feel like home, and it's like, And then you have the old reliables that are really good. They're not too hip. They're not like 70 years old. You love going there, that coffee shop. And then you have like the really hip institutions that when you're feeling bougie, you can go there, right? So you're creating yourself, you're building yourself into that network, right? Like, how do I scunch myself into this neighborhood and become an old reliable, an institution for my community? So for interconnectedness, what you're creating is camaraderie. It's reciprocity, right? Again, another thing from braiding sweetgrass. Not only do you offer support, you also receive support from your community. I don't, going back to LA Compost, just because I don't just give them material, they also give me back soil. I don't just receive advice from Michael, I also come to his events and support him. And so there is a give and take, and there's a sense of, because if you're just someone who receives advice all the time, you're not being engaged. But if you're saying, I need help, like when I was like, team, we are stressed, help me, they felt like pulled into the process. So that's what you're building with interconnected systems. How have I done that for Compostable? Twice a year, Compostable has a Compostable Farm Day. So our members want to get soil back. Okay, we'll give you soil back, because we know that the power of compost is not just landfill diversion, but it's soil creation, right? We can make soil sinks. Well, how are we making soil sinks if we're not giving soil back to the members who contributed to it so they can spread it all across their land? I feel like this is one thing that's often missed with like more kind of industrial systems, is you give them the material and then they spread it somewhere else. And I'm like, no, I want you to spread that stuff in my city, right? Rehab the soils right here. And so what I have told people is like, you absolutely should get soil back twice a year, but it's not going to be invisible. You are going to come to a farm, you are going to see how composting happens, and we're going to make it really fun for you. So We always have vendors, different small businesses that I'm just inspired by. We feed them, and we have a free workshop. So a big model I have is free and fee. I always offer a free option and I always offer a fee option. The fee option is probably going to be more convenient. The free option is still going to exist, but you have to like do it on my time, right? You can't just hire me and come and I'll do it for free. So, but I like to offer both for equity purposes. So twice a year we have free workshops, and then throughout the year we have fee workshops. So we have free workshops, and then these are all small businesses or organizations that have participated in a farm day. We had our past farm day on November 4th. 3 vendors sold out of their products. And it was like, they were just so happy, and I was so happy. I was like, that's so dope. You sold out because of this event I threw. Yeah, you know, whoa, yeah, it's so fun. And we have e-waste recycling and clothing donations, and that's the camaraderie. I don't charge anything. There's no vendor fees. There's no admission tickets. It's a totally free event. It's meant to be kind of anti-capitalism, though there is vending that's happening, but it's small business vending. And so when they sell out, do I get anything from that? No, but I get to celebrate with that. And I'm like, fuck yeah, you know? So how can you build in camaraderie into your company? And like, these are all photos from different farm days. It's like my team. This is an event planner who does the whole thing pro bono because she saw how stressed I was running these events without her. That's her, that's Belinda. I was at like one of them and she came up, she's my friend. And I was like, ah! You know, she's like, we can elevate this and you can stop having a heart attack. And I was like, thank you, can you do it for free? But like after, you know, getting drinks after farm day. And like, this is obviously Michael, my oldest partner. This is another partner of mine. So just having these experiences where we can just be joyful together. Okay, and then we have about 20 minutes left. They said to do about a 40-minute presentation with about 20 minutes of speaking. So now dialogue. I want you to ask questions or maybe share ideas of how you're doing this, but I don't know the best way to get this started. Let's start with it. Does anybody have questions for me? Yeah.
How do you maintain a hauling business in your area?
Okay.
We're gonna go deep.
Yeah. So traditionally, the work I do is not allowed because there are franchise agreements in LA. So the franchise agreements mean that one major waste hauler has exclusive rights to the waste produced in their area. Okay, and so I come along and I'm like, I don't want it. I don't know where you're taking my stuff. I don't know how it's processed. No, thank you. So I was bringing it to LA Compost for a while at their drop-off sites, and then I was getting really pissy because my roommates would never bring it to LA Compost drop-off sites. I was always the one bringing it, and I was like, why don't you guys just pay me to do this? And I was like, wait a second. Why don't you guys just pay me to do this? You know, it's like, and LA Compost was like, you're gonna have trouble. I was like, really? You know? And like, yeah. So what I did was I read the law over and over and over and over and over again for 2 years until I found my own little loophole in the law. Yeah. And I don't tell people my loophole, especially because we're being recorded. But I can tell you guys after. But I read that law, so I can't tell you. Highlighting, what's this mean? What's the definition of this? Like, until I could figure out my own little way to scunch in here. Now, does that mean the haulers have not politely threatened me? No. Does that mean the haulers haven't casually threatened my clients? No, they still have. And what I have found is some clients are so unhappy with industrial systems that they're like, try it. You know, they're like when they're like, go. And others are like, listen, no, I'm not fighting this fight. And I'm like, but I have a loophole and it's totally legal. And they're like, I'm not doing this. Like, I don't want to be threatened by, you know, like, I'm just not doing it. So it's not foolproof. Like, I had at my highest peak like 950 customers. Compared to other cities, that's not a ton actually for how big LA is. And I fully believe it's because you can't cancel your green bins in LA, even if you're home composting. So someone like me who has an entire composting business still pays for the green bin. So that I think that's a big issue. I think the narrative that's being told by major waste haulers that they can't use an alternative service provider, even if I have this loophole. I think that's been a big issue in getting members. And so I just am constantly educating people all the time. Like, they can say that, but I do have a loophole. It's a totally valid loophole. I know X, Y, and Z are also utilizing the same loophole with zero problem. I mean, Z works with the city utilizing the loophole, so I know this is legit. So I encourage you, the loophole that's appropriate for LA is not going to be maybe the same one that in your areas, but I encourage you to read those laws over and over again until you find your own little nestle spot, but it doesn't erase all the problems, Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah.
Part of it is, even if you don't have the time or the wherewithal to invest yourself in reading the law, and Mo was the first person to encourage me to do that. But one of the things that we found is all of these franchise agreements have an expiration date.
Yeah.
And if you know when that is, then you can strategically put yourself in the conversation with your city, be that squeaky wheel. It's all relational. They know who you are. So that when it's time to rewrite that agreement, you have a seat at the table.
Yeah. What we're doing in collaboration with CAC actually is writing a policy overview, and I could send it to you all once it's finalized, about like something that just grounds people, because no one's being malicious, right? Like, I really don't think anybody is being malicious, truly. I think the cities are rolling out the easiest to implement programs, which makes a lot of sense. They're spread thin, underpaid, stressed out all the time. And then the waste stores are like, I mean, this is my business, does everybody know, like, a corporation has one legal responsibility, and that's a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders. They are legally obligated to do what's in the financial best interest of their shareholders. So what are they going to do? So yeah, I can send the policy one pager once it's done. That's giving some language to talk about, like, so you can be at that table and you know how to present yourself as allies and saying, we're not going to take all this business from anybody. We just want, it's not like farmers markets have shut down Ralph's. Like it still exists, but like there is a whole community of people who value the way food enters their life and who will equally value the way food exits their life. And we want to be that resource. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
So the threats are coming from the city or the secondary company the city is hiring?
I would say the intimidation is coming from the franchised haulers, not the city. The city's actually been great. I have a strong belief that if you don't make somebody tell you that what you're doing, like, they have to enforce the law, they'll just kind of do this. So, you know what I mean? Like, for the city, they're like, don't make me enforce this, please. And I'm less like, I'm just going to stay over here. I'm just doing my thing, like cruising. So I tend to like engage, be friendly, talk, have advice, but I don't wave in their face. So they're like then forced to make something required. But this is all your own journey to decide on how you want to go forth. Every person is different on how they want to engage in this process if you want to become a hauler and you have franchise agreements. Mine was a quiet little, I'm just like a tip tap in here and like just shh, no one's here. Some people have been much more like, hey, talk to me and let's. I'm kind of doing the bird method. Do you remember when bird scooters came and they just dropped them in Santa Monica and ditched? And at the same time, I was like, what the hell? And now everybody like relies on bird, and Santa Monica couldn't even like enforce. I'm just like, look around, I'm everywhere. What are you gonna do? It's like, so everybody's gonna have their own little path forward with that. Yeah.
This is
one of those things where it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission?
I mean, it really depends on your state, you know? So I'll give you an example. Common Rot in Long Beach was a hauler. And they tried to partner and they tried to partner and they tried to partner. And eventually they were like, you know what, we're just going to go do it. And they got shut down, you know? So it really depends. You have to know your area really well and figure out how they operate. Like, if there's one really motivated person in the city that's for it, that's a totally different pathway than there's one motivated city against it. You know, like, that's why I think, like Haley was saying, the relationships are so important. You got to figure out who you're talking about. Our greatest ally, honestly, is Michael from LA Compost. Your greatest ally might be Haley. You know, like, maybe she already has it. Michael knows friggin' everyone, and he's measured, right? I come in and I'm like, septum pierced, dark hair, you know, and the city's like, oh, you know, I'm like, Michael, go forth, tell them this. You know? Yeah, he's like our little Trojan horse, you know, like, don't put me in front of a city person. Yeah, I'm gonna swear. And yeah, so like, maybe you figure out, like, maybe that's not your skill set. Maybe that's Haley's skill set, and you send her forth, and you're like, can you advocate for us, you know? Yeah, Haley was like, please don't. Don't do that. Yeah.
Describe how you did go for it.
Yeah.
Right in front of the Palm Springs Council.
We did. I
Tax
actually,
supported you to be able to do that.
yeah, that was one of my first learnings about the network, and I thank you for that. So you really taught me a lot about leaning into it and knowing that you don't have to go into those conversations by yourself. So we occupied Zoom.
You would catch them, like
Yes,
watch them.
it was an occupation for like an hour and a half. Called in, you were there too.
Yeah.
I called in Michael from LA Compost, and I wanted to make sure that the sustainability manager of Palm Springs at the time, he left his job. I'm not sure why, but I've been told that it had something to do with us. So it's your right to be able to have public comment, and we used all of our 2 minutes wisely, and brought in some different perspectives from all over the network. So part of the importance of this training is that now you have people, and when you find yourself in those conversations, whether it's funding, whether it's policy, advocacy, troubleshooting, call the network.
Yeah, interconnectedness is key. The policy overview I'm developing is in collaboration with LA Compost, Full Circle Compost, Long Beach Compost. It's not Compostables policy agenda. It's Community Composters of LA, our policy agenda. What we would like to see to be more included. So, and it's stronger that way. And I'm really good at going on Canva and making policy pagers, and then Michael's really good at talking. So I'm like, I'll make this thing, you go in, I'll follow up with an email after with my policy one pager. We freaking did it, you know? And so there's, you know, really utilizing your own skill set and also acknowledging maybe what's not your skill set and who might be more productive in that setting, you know? Yeah. Oh, good, yay. They're just such a big deal. I just figured everybody knew. No, I'm kidding. So LA Compost is run by this guy. Hold on. That's LA Compost. They're a nonprofit in LA that runs drop-off sites. So they have like 27 or 32 drop-off sites, 50 drop-off sites all throughout LA. Churches, community parks, schools, and people can drop off for free. And so they just celebrated 10 years. And for example, I'm at 4, so they've been around for a really long time, really paving the way for the ability for all these other community composters to exist. Like Tawa is new. Los Angeles Community Garden Council got involved in composting because LA Compost had a drop-off site. Avenue 33, that's their own thing. They're dope. They run a farm, and they're like, yeah, they're like the ultimate, come on, you know. She's my employee, and Real Waste does actually movie composting. They have like big machines that they drop off. They're in-vessel composting units. So, and I just love it because it's like, my company's all girls, and look at this dude fest, you know what I mean? We have to have a mixer, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, LA Compost is a great model.
So LA Compost also co-founded this organization as well, the California Alliance for Community Composting, and helped us steward the first round of CCGS. They are stewarding the LA region this round, so they're still very much funded and involved in CalRecycle and in the work. And then CAC has the 7 other regions. So we're still working really closely with Michael to make sure there's continuity in the programming and the strategy of how we roll this out with LA Compost. So it's like CAC and LA Compost leading this movement statewide.
Yeah.
Do you want to say Michael's role with you at CC right now?
Oh,
That's a
and
celebration.
That is, if we do want to really celebrate successes. So Michael was just voted onto the U.S. Composting Council's Board of Directors. He's the first person of color to hold that, as well as the second, community composter to hold that role. So we now have representation and inclusion on a very big Board of Directors. So
And he just wrote a kid's book, Composting for Community.
and I have a copy if you want to see the children's book that he wrote. So we always say Michael is our celebrity, but now I have a signed book by the author who now, like, I think legitimately makes Michael our celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah. He's this. Yeah. Everybody wants to be around Michael. We're like, just rub elbows with him. Hello. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Do you have any ideas that you're going to take home to build resilient operations? Is there anything you already thought, like, I want to incorporate? Can you throw ideas out so we could be inspired by them?
I really like the buddy system.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm training on the side, I make sure like everybody is receiving the same kind of training. That's why I have the log book, where somebody can pick up that book and know what to do. But at the same time, I want every volunteer to know the basics of composting to the science behind composting.
Yeah.
Real regular manner. But I really like that buddy system idea where you pair up people. It's like, yeah, you know, I ends up, it's so well, okay, we are buddying up and we can cover for each other.
Yeah.
And don't stress Haley early in the morning.
Right? Just contact your buddy first, and then if your buddy doesn't work out, then you switch over to the other person. And they do that. If they want time off, they arrange it and then just let us know. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
That's a really good point. From a corporate training model, when you have a large group of people, like enterprise systems, you can always have your group, your individual groups, and then one person that is like that go-to person is the expert. And then you have sort of a network of resources below you, so you don't have people that are just learning kind of right to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. What were we going to say, Janelle?
Well, it actually relates directly to this slide, the strength and redundancies. I've always loved, we have a lot of community composters in our area, and they all are under different organizations, and recently, since I started working for CAC, I've been trying to bring everyone together just in like creating that unified voice about what we want and what we're doing and how we're sharing that with the community, but also just appreciating like every single individual group has a different following. They have a different type of group or demographic of people that they appeal to for whatever reason. They're part of that community or they're part of that culture. So like it's so important not to like necessarily all absorb under one common practice or model just because that doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
And the more diversity and redundancy that we have, the more people we're going to reach.
Right. Yeah. So these guys serve South LA a lot, and these guys serve Northeast LA, and these guys are the East Side, and these guys are the Valley, you know, and those are the communities they know. And Compostable tends to be more West Side heavy, actually, because I'm from the West Side. And so, yeah, I think that's totally true. And like each of those communities are super different in what they're interested in. Like LA Compost is amazing at bilingual signage. They have a really deep connection with like the Hispanic community. Compostable, I don't know how this happened, but we have more of a deep connection with the Asian community. And so our materials tend to be more like around that kind of like, what are the Asian families cooking? What are the Hispanic families cooking? Like, and so, yeah, just being really in tune to that. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
I was just thinking that, what you were saying, that different organizations serve different areas. I think, a lot of times, especially in politics, and in business, there is this feeling of scarcity You know, and I think, you know, as people trying to do good in the world, we have to think in abundance, that there is room enough for everybody. You know, when you're talking about the waste haulers, well, this is my area,
Right.
this is my thing. But actually, all these organizations can coexist. We're not in competition.
Yeah.
We are there to help each other.
Yeah. And that's, you know, some people are like, Mo, you're trying to get exemptions for community composters. This is not going to rise up your competitors, because I'm the only micro hauler in LA. And I'm like, who cares? You know, like, because I'm operating with a loophole. So technically I could just go and do I'm like, what? There's 10 million people in LA. Like, seriously, man? Like, yeah, there is going to be a rise, and that's fine. Like, I don't need everybody. I can operate happy at 600 members. I can operate happy at 900 members. And like, recalibrating to that is really important. It's just like, yeah, we were happy then, we're happy now, we're happy. What's not happy is when you drop from 900 to 600 and you still have all the resources for it. I'm like, sell the van, you know, like, get rid of it. You know, like, that, you know, like, constraint. But like, once you get back down there, it's like, we're groovy, baby. You know, we're good. Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, Ron Finley, master class.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could maybe notify him what you're doing?
Ron is an interesting guy. Ron has, I have never met Ron or talked to Ron. I heard he has like a $26,000 speaking fee. So I think Ron is like up there, you know, and I'm like here. I'm like, Ron, you know, so while Ron is in LA, I don't know like how accessible he is.
Well, I was just thinking masterclass, and you could get on masterclass somehow.
Yeah, Cat should be in masterclass. Yeah, all of us.
I subscribed for it already.
Masterclass is a program where you can learn different skills from different experts. So Ron Finley teaches the horticulture one, but there's like painting and accounting, and there's all sorts of master classes. Yeah. Good. Any other takeaways that you're like, I'm definitely doing this in my operation? One more. Who's gonna spit it out? You?
I wanted to give you some empowerment and comfortability with being vulnerable, talking about the loophole, because we have put a lot of effort into communicating with the state legislator and with the state agency that's funding this program, and we have established these really clear safeguards. So I don't want to make it a big secret. I just want to tell you guys what it is, so that you can effectively tell your community what it is. We can talk right to the camera. We can tell it right to CalRecycle. I'm stepping into fear. I'm not scared of this. I think the conversation actually needs to be elevated to make you feel even more comfortable. At the training retreat we hosted in San Diego, we invited the Office of Public Affairs to come and record this conversation about policy. And they are going to put it into a short for the monthly public meeting at CalRecycle and express it right to CalRecycle. So this is a unified voice, and it's a safe space. So here is the loophole. In SB 1383, we were able to get exemptions for permit facilities. So if you keep it under a certain amount of physical space and physical volume, you are exempt from seeking a permit for your compost hub. That's 750 square feet. That's 100 cubic yards. Underneath that, there's no need for an organization that's either local or state level to come in and to say you can't do that here. It's exempt. The second part is in the planning section of SB 1383. We got a sentence put into it that says, nothing in this regulation about this law allows a jurisdiction to prevent a generator of organic material from reducing it in the first place, right? So caterers, restaurants, your home, like just resource reduction being the very first part. And second, feeding people or animals with that. So making a space for food recovery organizations to develop under this law. And then the third was donating the material to community-based organizations, which is us, which is Desert Compost, which is all of your sites. So there's nothing that a jurisdiction can do to prevent you from keeping it out of the stream, which is waste. And then the last part was defining what waste is. And so there's now legal precedent for this. Waste is when you take a piece of organic material, you place it in a bin out for collection, and it's picked up to take it to a disposal facility. So we don't identify with disposal facility at all. So we therefore are not actually moving, hauling, or touching waste. We are just as much a food runner as a food recovery organization is. My worms order pizza crust, and they ask for it to be delivered very on time, and I get that to them. So if we start looking at this as resource recovery and actually doing ontological design in the words that we use and making sure that they match this very big political fight to get those 2 sentences in this regulation, then we will be safe and we will be fine. So I want to give you confidence that what you are doing is not illegal. And if anyone does come to test that, going back to this interconnectedness, is that you have a wonderful community that's already gone through this before you. It's the basis of how this organization was started. It was one cease and desist letter, too many. And so we're here, and we are able to do this because we have been unified. So that's clearly what we've got is the exemptions. If you have any questions about it, Bo and I are leading the policy parties, policy discussions. We're pretty vocal about it, and we want to give you confidence to be that way as well, and not feel that it's going to jeopardize any of the work that you're doing as part of this program.
So now one of those is actually my loophole. Yeah, because yes, but thank you. I was doing this before SB 1383, so I needed something to get me there. But I think that what's important about this is that's statewide versus LA based, right? So these exemptions she just listed apply to everybody, no matter where you are, Paradise to Redlands, and that's really important. Yeah. I'll name it after. And Nez, are you going to edit that part out? This is off the record. Do you hear me?
She said it.
And Nez?
So Courtney, remember at the beginning when Penguin was trying to think of other words instead of food waste and food scraps? Food recovery bucket.
Yeah. I just call it organics.
Yeah.
Call it what it is. What's alive, it will be alive. And everybody else is using that term organics too. Organics recycling, organics recovery, mixed material, organics is another one. MMO. What else did we say? Just reclaiming organics to be ours.
Yeah. Took a long time to figure it out.
And I just wanted to add like Mo found her skill that she can read agreements again and again and again, highlight them and find the loopholes. I'm like, I don't have the patience to read and highlight, but I can go into a sustainability commission, be a volunteer because